The farmers we will meet on these tours come from all across the land that today we know as Canada. But for thousands of years, Indigenous peoples have been taking care of this land. They knew how to make sure the soil was healthy and the environment was taken care of. We rely on the land to grow food for us to eat. It's important that we take care of the land so it can nourish us. That's why we want to learn from the Indigenous people's wisdom and ways of caring for the planet. We want to work together to create a healthy future for this land and for our communities. This is called reconciliation, and it means we want to make things better between different groups of people.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the second stop on the Great Canadian Farm Tour. My name is Laura and I am the MC for today's tour. We've got an awesome tour planned for you guys today. We are heading to British Columbia, where we are going to learn all about how greenhouse tomatoes are grown. But first, I'd like to introduce you all to Holly, who is the education specialist at British Columbia Agriculture in the Classroom. Hello, Holly.
Hi everyone! I'm going to teach you a little bit about British Columbia today. So today we're visiting British Columbia and we're going to learn a little bit about our capital city and our provincial bird, flower, and a famous landmark. So you can see here that this is our province's flag and the wavy blue lines on it represent the Pacific Ocean. The capital city of British Columbia is Victoria, is my hometown, and there's about 394,000 people that live in Victoria, and it's located on Vancouver Island. You can also see here is our provincial bird. It's called the Steller's jay, and it has the ability to imitate the noises of birds, animals, and anything else around it. This is our provincial flower, the Pacific dogwood, and these big white flowers bloom on tall trees in April and May. And this is one of our most famous landmarks, Stanley Park, and it's one of the largest urban parks in Canada. And you can see the city and the ocean and the rainforest from this park that's located in Vancouver.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing a little bit about British Columbia, Holly.
You're welcome. Have a great tour.
Thanks so much. And now it is time to give a warm welcome to our esteemed host for the Great Canadian Farm Tour, the woman, the myth, the legend, Colleen Cronican. Welcome, Colleen.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Laura.
Have a great tour.
Yeah, we'll see you at the end. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to remind teachers that for everyone participating in the Great Canadian Farm Tour this year, we're hosting a contest. So teachers can enter by posting a picture of their class participating in the tours, post that photo to social media, and use the hashtag GCFT23contest for a chance to win a prize pack for your classroom. And now I'm really excited to introduce you all to our greenhouse tomato farmer today, Ruben. Hi, Ruben.
Well, hello and good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're watching us from.
Yeah, I see lots of comments here, people joining us from all across Canada, so lots of different time zones. So just a reminder, teachers,
thank everybody.
Yeah, so just a reminder, teachers, that we get to ask Ruben lots of questions today, so you can write the questions in the comment box on YouTube. We're going to get started here. It looks like Ruben's connection might be a little bit, we'll take him out of the stream here and bring him back, and hopefully that'll work. And we have Laura.
I'm back. Do you want to know some fun facts about tomatoes while we're waiting for Ruben's internet to get a little fix there?
Yeah, that'd be great. What do you got?
So how many varieties of tomatoes do you think there are in the world, Colleen?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe like 25?
A little higher than that.
100.
A little higher than that. There are actually 10,000 different varieties of tomatoes in the world.
That's a lot of tomatoes. I wonder how many Ruben grows on his farm.
I think we're probably going to find out sometime later today. Do you also want to know what the biggest tomato ever grown was?
I'd love to know about the biggest tomato ever grown.
Okay, so the biggest tomato ever grown was grown in 2022, and it weighed 5.284 kilograms.
Kilograms? What's that like in pounds?
I don't know, but it's approximately the weight of a can of paint, so that's a pretty big tomato.
That's a huge tomato.
So the circumference of that tomato was also 82.55 centimeters, which is approximately 59 bumblebees if you line them up from their head to the pointy part.
Wow, that is very long.
That's
You know what, Laura? I think we're going to jump into our first brain break, and then hopefully Ruben will be back after that.
Let's do it.
Okay. Get your activity books ready, and here's your first brain break.
Did you know plants in some greenhouses are grown using hydroponics, which means they don't need soil? These plants need sunlight, water, carbon dioxide, and nutrients to grow.
Okay, so we have a video here now of Ruben. So before he went into the greenhouse today, there were some things that he had to do. So we can see here that Ruben's washing his hands. And he's doing this because when you go into the greenhouse, you don't want to bring in any germs or any potential bugs that might be on you or anything from the outside environment. We don't want to bring that into the greenhouse because we don't want to hurt the plants. So you can see here he's putting on some shoe covers to cover up his shoes. This just ensures that they're nice and clean and he's not bringing in any dirt from outside. He's going to put on this cover up to cover anything that might be on his clothes. And this is all just to protect the plants. Because there's lots of things outside in the environment that we don't want to bring into the greenhouse. Okay, and now we're going to watch our second brain break while we're waiting for Ruben. So sorry for the technical difficulties we're having. We're trying to get Ruben here back on the screen, but everything will be good and we'll just jump to our second brain break now.
Did you know integrated pest management, IPM, is used to control bad insects in greenhouses, such as aphids, spider mites, and whiteflies? Ladybugs are an example of a good insect.
Okay, everyone, we're just going to play the intro slides, and during this time, you can work on your activity book. There's lots of activities there for you. You can color the borders of every page. You can make the front page of your activity book look nice, and we'll be back soon once Ruben is here again. Okay, hello everyone. We're back and we have Ruben back.
Well, sorry everyone for the technical difficulties. We were just about to talk about sunshine in the greenhouse and how nice and warm it is, and my phone actually overheated while we were up there. So we've dropped down into the canopy of the crop where it's a little bit shadier. So thank you everyone for joining us here at Howling Nurseries in Delta, BC at our tomato greenhouse. The greenhouse here is 50 acres under glass. That might be small for a regular farm, but for a greenhouse farm, that's a medium to large size farm. So thank you again, everyone, and thanks for waiting for the technical difficulties.
Yeah, that's what we get with live farm tours, I guess, so Ruben.
Yeah.
Yeah, so can you just teach us a bit about your greenhouse and how come you grow the plants in a greenhouse? What's the benefit of that?
Well, today's a really good example. This morning when I left for work, I actually had frost on my car, so it was -1. That's way too cold to grow tomatoes outside. But if we put them under glass cover and we can warm the greenhouse up, we have plenty of light to grow tomatoes, even this early in the season. In fact, we've been picking tomatoes already for 4 weeks since the very end of winter.
Wow, so it stays warm in there all year round.
That's right. And with the help of a little bit of lights, we can even pick tomatoes and cucumbers in the wintertime too.
Wow, so fresh vegetables and all year round.
Yes.
Great. So, Ruben, in one of the brain breaks, we learned about hydroponics and how tomato plants, they need water and they need CO2. So can you teach us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, okay. So you're looking at a video now, and you can see how we water the plants. We don't do it by hand. We have a little emitter there, and there's a computer that cycles that on every 15 or 20 minutes, and we just give it a little bit of water at a time. And that water also has fertilizer that we've mixed and dissolved in there. Here you can see the CO2. We talked about heating our greenhouse. Well, we heat it with a gas boiler. And from the exhaust of the gas boiler, there's carbon dioxide. And we actually capture that carbon dioxide, and it's going into the plants all around me right now so they can get nourished, and that's what they breathe to make them produce more tomatoes.
Okay, so it looks like there was lots going on down there. So we had the irrigation tubes, the CO2 tubes. Can you teach us about what the plants are growing in? It looks like they're in like a raised area.
Yeah. Generally, we lift the plants up and they're on a supported gutter. They can also be on the ground as well, but in which case there would be a collection system. So whatever water that the plant doesn't use, it gets collected and it goes into a big tank. And we take that tank and we reuse all the water that the plants didn't take. So we measure what nutrients the plants have taken up, and we add a little bit more in, and we keep that cycle going over and over and over again. And when the plants are growing, they're actually growing they're not growing in the ground. We make a little small bag with recycled coconut fiber, and that holds just enough moisture for the plant to get watered with small amounts of irrigation on a frequent basis.
Okay, so they're not growing in soil then, they're growing in a different kind of medium.
Yeah, that's right. And when we clean up the crop at the end of the year, we take that medium out and we recycle it, and we'll put a clean new medium in at the beginning of the next cycle.
Okay, very interesting. I see lots of questions coming in here, Ruben. Maybe we'll get some questions from our live audience.
I'd love that.
So this classroom is asking, how many tomatoes do you grow in a year?
Well, we measure our tomatoes by production per square meter. Now, the variety that I have growing around me is a grape tomato. So we might pick about 30 kilograms of those tomatoes per square meter. And if you want to do the math, our greenhouse is 20 hectares. So you could multiply that to see what our annual production is. But we're going to see some larger tomatoes later on in the video. And just to give you an idea, we can get more than 100 pounds of tomatoes from one plant in the
From
course
one plant.
of March to November. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of tomatoes.
It is.
Okay, next question. What is your biggest tomato? So when you were gone, Ruben, Laura was telling us about the biggest tomato ever grown. So have you grown some really big tomatoes?
Um, I would say beefsteak tomatoes are the biggest,
Yeah.
but what we find is that in the past few years, customers are asking for smaller and smaller tomatoes, and we call them snackers. So like grape tomatoes and cherry tomatoes, we're growing more and more of the small ones rather than the big ones, and those seem to be what people like the most when they go to the grocery store and take them home.
Okay, very interesting. We'll have one more question here. So we have this school is at saying we have indoor tomatoes at school. What do you feed your tomato plants? What mix of fertilizers or foods, and how often?
Okay, so I'll start with how often. They're getting fertilizer, a small amount in the water every single time we irrigate. So that can be every 15 or 20 minutes. So there's always a small amount of fertilizer in every irrigation. Now that fertilizer has a custom recipe that we make ourselves with all the elements, things like potassium and we have the calcium and different things to boost the nitrogen, and even micronutrients like copper, and we also put iron in there, and we mix those up. So a concentration level, if you guys are mixing your fertilizer, do you ever use a traceable conductivity meter? Because we would be looking for an EC level of about 3.2 to 3.5, but we'll change that throughout the day and every day. It's constantly moving up and down.
Okay, sounds like lots of math and science is involved in that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're gonna watch our job spotlight now, and these job spotlights help us to learn about different careers that are available in agriculture.
Software developers create programs that businesses can use to make our food system better. They then teach farmers and other agriculture workers how their programs work.
Okay, so software developers are definitely an important role in the agriculture industry. And now, today's mystery word. So in the last page of your activity book is your passport. So turn there now and you can write down today's mystery word, which is farmers. And don't forget we're in British Columbia today, so that's the province that you write the word beside. All right, Ruben. So in one of the brain breaks, we learned about integrated pest management. And sometimes we say IPM instead of all three of those long words. Can you teach us a bit more about this and how you use IPM on your farm?
Okay. So with integrated pest management, we try to use as many natural controls to keep the level of insects that might cause damage to the crop at a minimum. But we actually allow some of those bad insects to live in the crop as long as the populations are small enough. You saw that card that we had in the video. That's a card that contains the eggs of an insect that we use to help control whitefly, for example. So those will hatch and they'll crawl out and they'll live in the crop, and they'll help manage the insects that could cause damage to our production and to the fruit.
Very interesting. And do you also have some good insects on in your greenhouse?
Yeah, so that card was good insects. I think we talked before about ladybugs that some
Yeah.
farmers might use. And
Mhm.
here we have helpers. Now, these insects are bumblebees. And you know what they're doing? They're pollinating the tomatoes. So all around us right now, you might not be able to see it in the video, but there's bumblebees buzzing around my head and buzzing through the leaves. And they're working from sundown from sun up to sundown, making sure that all of the flowers get pollinated and that we set all the fruit.
Yeah, I think I saw a bee earlier kind of buzz by the camera. So they're
Yeah,
working to make sure that the flowers of the tomato plants get pollinated.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, so now we've kind of seen different areas of your greenhouse, and we've seen understood how the plants grow and kind of what you need to do with the insects in your greenhouse. What happens when the tomato plants are ready to be harvested, and what do you do with them then?
Okay. So the harvesting is still very manual work, and we're going to be looking for tomatoes that are bright red so that they look as shiny and as nice and ready to eat as possible. And that's how, well, we'll call it vine ripen, but that's how they get as sweet as they can so that they're ripening from the sun here. But we have to handle tomatoes gently. So you can see how they're picking them branch by branch, or we'll call those trusses, and laying them down gently in the box so they don't get bruised, because you know that tomatoes are quite soft and it wouldn't take much to squash them and turn them into ketchup. And each one of these boxes, they'll get one layer of tomatoes, and then they'll put another empty box and stack it. Now you're seeing them come through the pack house, and we have a container that we put them into, and that container is going to get a lid on it. And that's the last step before they go into another box, and then they'll be put into a cooler and sent straight to the store. Some of these tomatoes will even be in the store the same day from when we pick them, close by to grocery stores in Vancouver.
Wow, what kind of grocery stores do you sell your tomatoes in, Ruben?
Oh, I think a lot of grocery stores, students and teachers will be familiar with, like Costco or Sobeys or the Loblaws stores, and even into different independent stores like IGA and local neighborhood markets.
Wow, that's amazing. So you can get same-day tomatoes in your local grocery store.
That's right.
Perfect. Okay, I think we have some more questions here from the audience. How many colors do tomatoes come in?
Most people think that tomatoes only come in red, but there's actually yellow or light yellow. I've seen purple tomatoes, I've seen brown tomatoes, and even green tomatoes, which don't turn red. They stay green, but they finish off tasting sweet. And we even have a package here where we mix all of those different colors together, so you have like a really bright assortment to make a salad with or a salsa with.
Oh, like a rainbow of tomatoes.
Absolutely, like a rainbow. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next question. How many different types of tomatoes do you grow?
So when we talk about beefsteak tomatoes and cherry tomatoes and grape tomatoes, there can be many different varieties that you can select from for one of those shapes and sizes. And there are literally hundreds of different varieties of tomatoes to pick from. We also do young plants for tomatoes for our greenhouse and other greenhouses, and we can have up to 800 different varieties in a year.
Wow. We learned earlier, Laura told us that there's 10,000 different varieties of tomatoes. So for you to grow about 800, that's a large fraction of that 10,000.
Yeah, that's right. And that's because a different variety is good for a grower who might be in New Brunswick, or a good variety for a grower in Ontario, or a good variety for a grower near Vancouver in BC.
Right. So tomatoes are grown all over Canada.
That's right.
Okay. Another question. Is it true that tomatoes are a fruit? So I think I might have said something differently earlier. Can you maybe correct me on that, Ruben?
Oh, the truth is a tomato a fruit? Well, yes, it is. But often when we are categorized and when we market the tomatoes, we fall in the vegetable category.
And is that just because of like how they taste, or why did we get that confused?
Well, it's like a vine vegetable, but it has little seeds on the inside, which is very similar to other type of fruits. And maybe vegetables we consider more where you're actually eating the plant, and fruit are the parts that reproduce of a plant. When we talk about yield, though, and production, we do internally refer to fruit quite often as a word for fruit pruning and different jobs that we do in the greenhouse. Okay,
so we've heard it from the expert here that Ruben says tomatoes are a fruit, not a vegetable. And now we all know. Okay, we have time for a couple more questions. Should we wash the tomatoes, or are they clean?
That's a good question. Yeah, I would wash the tomatoes. We're here in the greenhouse and we have a roof covering us, but there's still dust and different things that might happen when we're picking them or when they pack and they go into the cooler and onto trucks, and also at the grocery store as well too. So it's good to rinse them off before you eat them fresh.
So just underneath some cold water, or how would you recommend washing them?
I would recommend washing underneath some cold water. You don't need any soap or anything like that.
Okay. And one last question. So this grade 2-3 class is asking, how long have you been growing tomatoes?
Oh, I've been growing tomatoes for 24 years. So I actually
Wow.
started working in a greenhouse when I was your age, when I was 7. But I wasn't responsible for everything. I was just cleaning up the mess around the greenhouse. And as I got older, when I was 19 or 20, I started full time.
Okay, so quite a while. You're a tomato expert. So Ruben, we've come to the end of our tour, but we've learned so much from you today, and it's so interesting to travel all the way to British Columbia to learn about tomatoes being grown in a greenhouse. So we really appreciate you being a part of the Great Canadian Farm Tour.
Well, and thank you so much for having me, and thank you for coming to visit us in our greenhouse. I'm sorry that we couldn't get the video for the full time, but thanks for working with us.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ruben. Have a good day.
You too. Have a good day.
Wow, so much to learn about tomatoes being grown in greenhouses.
That was such an awesome tour. I learned so much. I didn't know that there are bumblebees in a lot of greenhouses to help them pollinate.
Yeah, you could see them buzzing around his head. I'm glad he didn't get stung or anything.
Me too, yeah. So for the third tour of the Great Canadian Farm Tour, we will be heading to the East Coast, to the province that I actually live in, which is PEI. So we will be learning about research on farms.
Perfect. I'm really excited for that next tour. And just one final reminder to teachers about our contest. So you can upload a photo to your class participating in the Great Canadian Farm Tour to social media, and just make sure you use the hashtag GCFT23 contest.
See you all in Prince Edward Island.
Bye.